You know that feeling, right? It's 7 p.m., you're staring into your fridge, you're starving, but literally nothing looks good. Or, okay, let's look at a much bigger stressor. Your boss just casually mentions that a massive project deadline has been moved up by 2 whole weeks, and your mind just immediately starts spinning. Sound familiar? We've all been there. But these aren't just daily annoyances. These are actually crucial problem-solving moments. In today's explainer, prepared by clinical psychologist and advocate Rabia Khan, we are turning puzzles into progress. We're going to dive into problem-solving, but specifically through the lens of positive psychology. We'll look at how tapping into your built-in strengths and using some very specific mental tools can literally turn that feeling of being completely stuck into a confident step forward. Okay, so here's a quick look at our roadmap. We're kicking things off with positive mindsets and the actual psychology of why we get stuck in the first place. Then we'll dive into some core strategies, walk through a few real-life examples, and wrap it all up with a personal action toolkit you can start using today. First up, the power of positive mindsets. This is really about understanding the crucial emotional layer of how we approach obstacles. So check out the contrast here. On one side, we have Carol Dweck's famous growth mindset. This is all about focusing on possibilities, right? It builds resilience, and it treats failure as just a temporary stepping stone. But then, look at the fixed mindset on the other side. This one is rooted in fear. It leads to endless overthinking, and it tricks you into seeing failure as this permanent, unchangeable flaw. To put it simply, people leaning into a growth mindset tend to find a solution for every problem, whereas folks stuck in a fixed mindset, well, they tend to find a problem with every solution. Moving along to the actual psychology of problem solving. Basically, why do our brains get so stuck? To really unpack this, we have to talk about Albert Bandura's concept of self-efficacy. Now, this isn't just general confidence. It's your domain-specific belief in your ability to actually pull off a specific task. So, if you genuinely believe you can handle a challenge in a certain area, say academics, or maybe public speaking, you're going to actually take action. You'll push through the messy, difficult parts. But if you have low self-efficacy in that area, you're way more likely to just throw your hands up and quit early. And honestly, the best part about this? Experiencing positive emotions and remembering your past wins actually builds up this self-efficacy. Expanding on that psychological foundation, we have Martin Seligman's game-changing concept of learned optimism. The key word there is learned. This teaches us that optimism is not just some genetic lottery ticket. You're not just born a cheerful person or a gloomy one. It's an active, ongoing practice. It's the habit of arguing back against your own automatic negative thoughts to break out of that feeling of helplessness. You can literally train your brain to challenge its own pessimistic assumptions. And then we have Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory, which is absolutely fascinating. Think about it. When you're terrified or anxious, what happens? Your focus aggressively narrows, right? It's like tunnel vision, which effectively paralyzes your decision-making. But positive emotions, things like hope, calm, or even just a little spark of excitement, they do the exact opposite. They literally broaden your cognitive focus. They open the doors in your mind, allowing all these novel, creative, outside-the-box solutions to pop up. Solutions that fear would have kept completely hidden in the dark. Okay, so those are these psychological theories. Now, let's get into the core problem-solving strategies. These are your actual mental tools. Let's break down 4 of the heavy hitters. First up is the algorithm. Think of this as a slow, deliberate, step-by-step procedure. It pretty much guarantees you'll get the right answer eventually, making it perfect for when exactness really matters, even if it takes a while. Next is the heuristic. This is your fast mental shortcut built on your past experiences. It's awesome for a quick fix, though, it can sometimes lead you astray. Third, we have good old trial and error. This is your go-to when you have limited options and you can afford to mess up a couple of times. And finally, insight. That magical, sudden aha moment. It usually strikes out of nowhere, right? But the secret is, it almost always happens after you've totally immersed yourself in a problem and then finally stepped away to let your subconscious do the heavy lifting. All right, let's see these concepts in the wild. Real-life problem-solving examples. Theories in motion. Take Sarah, for example. She's staring down 3 massive exams in a single week. She is completely overwhelmed. And what's she doing? Just endlessly, nervously doom-scrolling on her phone instead of hitting the books. But watch how she flips the script. First, she practices accurate problem discovery. She just openly admits, I'm swamped, without beating herself up over it. Next, she actually steps away and takes a 5-minute walk to get some endorphins going. Boom! That's Fredrickson's broaden and build theory in action. Her calm comes back. Once she's centered, she uses a heuristic shortcut, asking herself, okay, what worked for me last time? Oh, right, background music, and color coding my notes. Finally, she uses trial and error with the Pomodoro technique to see what pacing works best. And because she tackled this stress head on, her self-efficacy for the next round of exams shoots way up. Now picture Alex. He's managing a totally burned out team, and upper management just moved up a huge deadline. Instead of hitting the panic button, he taps into Seligman's learned optimism. He consciously forces himself to remember past times his team pulled off a miracle. That little psychological pivot relaxes him just enough so that later he actually gets a sudden flash of insight in the shower. He realizes he just needs to delegate the smaller tasks. To get this rolling quickly, he draws out a visual algorithm, like a flowchart, to reassign the work. And when things inevitably get a bit frustrating later that day, he uses positive reframing. He looks at a potential failure not as a disaster, but as an exciting chance to pivot. He meets the deadline, not by cracking the whip, but because his calm, optimistic energy is literally contagious. And finally, let's look at Jenna. She and her partner are trapped in this exhausting, repetitive loop of arguing over household chores. To creatively break that cycle, Jenna does something unexpected. She writes a gratitude letter, just thanking her partner for something nice they did earlier that week. This is brilliant because it completely shifts the emotional tone before the heavy conversation even starts. With that negativity bias neutralized, they can actually sit down and define the problem clearly without pointing fingers. That openness lets them brainstorm and try a totally low-stakes trial and error heuristic. Like, hey, let's just take a walk together every Tuesday night to talk about the chores. By bringing positive emotions to the table first, she unlocked a collaborative solution. So seeing how Sarah, Alex, and Jenna turned things around naturally begs a huge question for us. How do we build that exact same toolkit for our own daily routines? How do we stop just frantically patching holes and start actually building bridges? That brings us to your personal action toolkit. Start small, build big. Let's get practical. All right, here is your highly actionable toolkit. Number 1, secure a micro win with gratitude. You could use a gratitude jar or literally just jot down 3 good things on a sticky note every day. This directly short-circuits your brain's natural negativity bias. Number 2, do a strengths audit. Write down 3 things you know you are genuinely good at and ask yourself, how can these specific skills help me solve the problem I'm facing right now? This builds Bundura's self-efficacy by focusing on what you bring to the table rather than dwelling on your weak spots. And number 3, reflect and tweak. At the end of the day, just take a minute to ask yourself what worked and what you might want to adjust for tomorrow. That simple, low-pressure reflection is exactly how you foster Carol Dweck's growth mindset. Now, what if you hit a mental wall? You can actually use this to instantly flip those common cognitive roadblocks. Feeling trapped by your own assumptions? Stop and ask yourself, wait, what if the exact opposite were true? Are you stuck in functional fixedness, where you can only see a problem from one angle? Try brainstorming 10 absolutely ridiculous uses for a random object on your desk. It playfully loosens up your brain. Or maybe you're falling into a mental set, where your old, reliable solutions are suddenly failing you. If that happens, deliberately force yourself to try a method you have literally never used before. And if negativity bias is dragging you down, just force yourself to name 3 genuinely good things about your current situation. We're going to leave you with this really provocative reminder from cognitive psychology expert Kendra Cherry. True problem solving through positive psychology tells us that progress is always possible. Remember, positive emotions lead to a broader way of thinking. That broader thinking leads to better, more creative solutions. Those solutions raise your self-efficacy, which in turn creates even more positive emotions. It's an incredible cycle. So try picking just one tool from this toolkit to use tomorrow. You can always find a way forward, even if, sometimes, the healthiest, most productive solution of all is simply letting go. So tell me, which mental block are you going to challenge first?